All right, so one of the last things I wanted to say on this G1 checkpoint phase is that if the conditions aren't met, so say the environmental conditions, what happens is that cell goes into a resting or non-dividing state. So like it says there in the brackets, nerve cells, they don't actually need to go ahead and undergo mitosis in the way that our skin cells do or other cells within our body. And because of that, they pretty much live or continue to live in that non-dividing state. It's not that the temperature range might not be met, because obviously the temperature inside of our body remains pretty constant, but the growth factors or the proteins won't be created and exist around the area of those types of cells and trigger the response for that to enter or move through the G1 checkpoint, like what it would when we come to, say, hair or skin cells. So again, this is how protein synthesis actually can influence whether mitosis will occur. So once we pass through the G1 checkpoint, what ends up happening is the cell will now undergo the division or the DNA replication. This is where the chromosomes will double, and that's the S phase. So we don't need to talk about that as such, but that happens. And then we move into now the G2 phase. So the checkpoint at G2, again, is to make sure, has the DNA been replicated, which is the key difference between G1, but also if the environment is still in a favorable condition. And at this particular point here, what we have is we have what we call the mitosis promoting factor, or the levels of a certain chemical reaction that's going to occur to be high. What that will do is that will promote or kickstart the reaction of mitosis occurring, and we'll talk about the MPF on a couple of slides' time. So let's say we pass through the G2 checkpoint and there's all the right proteins, there's all the right hormones, there's all the right temperature ranges and conditions. Now what happens is we move into the G3 checkpoint of this regulation. So this is where now we've passed sort of the prophase section of mitosis and we're in metaphase. And so within metaphase, this will only occur to move on to anaphase if we've got the correct alignment of chromosomes along the spindle fibers. If that hasn't occurred, what we would see is if they were pulled apart and the alignment wasn't correct, we would see daughter cells containing inconsistent amounts of chromosomes or missing information. So it's really, really important that at this stage we've got the chromosomes aligned and being able to be pulled apart so that each daughter cell that is created from mitosis is able to actually have the right chromosomes so that that can go on and be a successful cell. At the end of this, what happens is for it to pass this checkpoint, the mitosis promoting factor levels also must fall, which indicates that we're coming to the end of that round of mitosis and we can begin cytokinesis to split up the cells. All right, so what we've just talked about here is we've talked about there's sort of the G1 phase checkpoint, the G2 phase checkpoint, and the G3 or the mitosis checkpoint. We need to have favorable conditions. We need to have replicated DNA in the G2 one. We also need to have alignment of the chromosomes on the spindle fibers in the correct way. So all of those things need to be met at different points along those checkpoints for the cell to continue to undergo mitosis, to undergo that cell division as a whole process. We now move on to briefly mitosis promoting factors, and if you go back and watch the video on like slide 3 or 4, you'll understand this in a bit more detail. And so what happens here is these factors or these proteins, actually you can see the first one is an enzyme that actually helps to kickstart a reaction. So it activates or inactivates other molecules by phosphorylating them or adding a phosphate group. And so cyclin will bind to this CDK enzyme, and then that will also kickstart or allow for mitosis to occur. You don't need to know too much about this, just that we do have this actual thing occurring, which will inevitably cause all of this to happen. So I'm going to pause here because I've got dog here, we've got cat here, and cat there. that'll do for this one. Hope you enjoy that.